Is brought to you by Stanbic Bank.
Welcome back. This is Spectrum on Radio 1 and I'm your host Edmond. So tonight we are reviewing the week. Our panel, Honorable Stephen Mukitale Birahwa, Member of Parliament for Buliisa County, Mr. Nicholas Opio, a legal consultant with AKJUL, and Mr. Vincent Mayanja, Deputy DP Secretary General. You might not be able to call in, but you can send a text message. Our text code is Spectrum 7197. That is, type the word Spectrum in your phone browser. Type your question, message, or comment and send it to 7197. Honorable Birahwa, we had local council elections and we expect to have a repeat of the mayoral elections. We had the local council elections this week. They were largely peaceful, but the EC also announced that the Kampala mayoral elections would be repeated on the 14th of this month. We had reports of ring and violence causing the halting of the elections. Do you think the EC and the politicians are now ready for a free, fair and peaceful process?
I have said here before, at times we use the EC as a punching bag when actually the problems are the political players themselves. Like for the repeat of the Kampala election, I think it would be unfair to blame the EC. I think the EC just came in to try and respond to what had happened. It's a whole culture of us, the players, either as individual candidates or as parties. If we are really not willing to go for a civilized, competitive election, let's not go for it. Because you can't really make a mess at your own level and you expect to overstretch either the security or the electoral commission. Fine. Electoral commission is supposed to have some level of being able to take this. But what could they have done in such a case? So, for the mayoral election, it is in Kampala. It has been discussed, but I think for the sub-county elections, like it was for divisions, like it was for the district elections, I think the conduct of election has been generally there has been some improvement. What I am not sure of is, must we have 4 days? President and MP, of course we did this in Parliament, we had a debate, we ended up allowing it the way it is. Then we have the district elections, now the municipalities and the towns, now the sub-counties. I find
that's too much time, too many days.
Too much time, it brings some voters fatigue and we may have a problem. The other area I must bring, much as not part of the topic, in future, we should realign our calendar with the national days. For example, if children are in holidays, immediately after Christmas, why don't we have elections and they go back at once? Children have to come for registration, go back, come for... There is a problem. So even the calendar itself has to be realigned. So you realize that by the people who vote the president are more. By the time we go to the lowest election, there will be even few voters. And I think that dilutes the whole intention of an election. So, of course, NRM, we did it in our primaries. You did everything one day. It was not very easy. But I think if we improved that, it could be a much better system.
All right. Do you think the East is ready for this new poll? Very briefly.
Yeah, for the sub-count, I think they should be. I can't blame them for the repeat of the mayoral race because they had logistics and resources which was wasted on that day. Now they have to recompose themselves. I even heard of people talking of recruiting new presiding officers.
Right.
That's a wastage of national resources. We
should use the old
The
one.
candidates are dying to be elected, but we are not looking at the cost to the country because that's a double expenditure.
They said it's 2 billion shillings already.
Exactly.
For a one-day exercise. So democracy is not cheap, really, in the end.
Let me just chip in here and make these points because I think the points have not been made. One is that the very issues that gave rise to another election for the mayoral race in Kampala have not been resolved. You cannot hold elections when these issues have not been resolved. Have the people who were involved in stuffing ballot boxes been arrested? Have they been found guilty? If they are found guilty and have committed electoral offences, have they been disqualified as candidates? I think before you go into another election for the mayoral race of Kampala, these issues have to be addressed. Because if you don't address these issues, you're going to go back into a relapse of what happened in the past. Secondly, the police is carrying out investigations with the intention of determining criminality arising from the event of that day. the police investigations have not been made public, they have not been concluded, we cannot have elections when these issues haven't been resolved. Because I do think that people who are involved in the mess that characterized Kampala on that day must be held to account and should not be allowed to take part in further elections.
All right.
Because I do think that even the use of people to beat up other people on the voting day, you watched on TV, you've seen in newspapers, vigilante groups that were used to beat up people in several areas of Kampala on the day of voting. These groups have not yet been arrested.
And we know them besides.
We know them. How sure are we then that the next poll that is being proposed for the 14th is going to be a peaceful, is going to be a free and transparent process? I think it is not going to be in the circumstances.
And can you add that the other candidates are actually threatening to sue Electoral Commission if the elections? You're aware?
Yeah,
actually, I saw them coming together.
There's a whole complex. Of course, we'll be talking about the militias. The only problem I seem to have is that, unlike the police, they don't even have uniforms, so you can't tell one militia group from another. Mr. Mayanja.
I think what is missing with the EC is the goodwill to have a free and fair, peaceful process as far as the Kampala mayor race is concerned. The lawyer has already pointed one issue I wanted really to point out, that when we looked at the TV, we watched TV that day, we saw people carrying sticks embedded with nails, and they were entering a certain premise. And this premise belongs to
a private radio station. Let's speak in plain English. Let's not speak in riddles and parables.
And they didn't follow this up. I drove near that radio station that day and found that a parking yard of that radio station had become a barracks of sorts, where these goons had gathered.
Oh, you saw it physically?
I saw it physically.
You know, the police, the Inspector General of Police has not even seen a single journalist was beaten, so it's all an allegation. Let's not go into wishful
Then
thinking.
you know what? At Kakeka, a young girl of 18 who had been deployed there as a candidate's agent was beaten up by these goons, and she almost went into a coma. She suffered serious injuries, and the police.
The Inspector General of Police, he says he knows he doesn't know about any journalist who was beaten.
Well, I think the Inspector General of Police should really visit.
He said it in front of TV cameras, on the record. I'm not alleging.
Should go to the public, and they will definitely let him know if he really wants to cooperate with the public. But I really believe that the EC, if they wanted, secondly, this is going to be an isolated process for Kampala alone.
Yes.
They can withdraw all those senior officials
From other places.
Deploy
them in Kampala.
Bring them to Kampala, and then they conduct this exercise.
Well, they have 2 billion shillings.
It requires a delay instead of rushing.
Well, but they say according to the law, an official from the EC came here and said, according to the law, they have to do it within that time. Let's move to something else, something probably less emotive and doesn't get some of us sentimental about injustices carried out in broad daylight like this one. Let's talk about something else. Dr. Besigye announced results from a country sampling of 2.3 million voters. Honorable Birahwa, he says, which is about a third of the country's polling stations. Dr. Besigye claims it took 1,000,004 of the votes, representing 46.9%, almost 47%, while President Museveni followed Dr. Besigye with just under 1,994,862 votes, which is 44.89, or just about 45% of the vote. Dr. Besigye insisted that no party actually won the election outright, and that there should have been a rerun between him and Museveni. Government described Besigye's claim as a sign of madness. I like that clause. While the EC insisted that Museveni won the election outright. What do you think about this? These two results, the 68 and the 44?
As I've already said, Besigye, any other presidential candidate, by evening, that evening around 8, really, if one doesn't want to cheat his own conscience, knew his results.
By 8 p.m.?
Yes.
That's not possible, that is it?
Yes, because they have closed voting at 5 if there were not people queuing.
Yes.
And if you have a good connection, your district is already having a result by around that time.
By around 8 o'clock.
So, people are just being dishonest. The culture of conceding defeat is just not there. For our senior brother, Dr. Retired Colonel Besigye. And also, I said it here, really, Dr. Besigye, after standing twice and failing, really, did he really expect to perform beyond last time? Because if it was in terms of solubility, I would say you can be super saturated. We didn't expect anything beyond that. So I think people have to find excuses to tell their people and try and encourage people. And that's why I think in his own ranks, you hear so many people saying, I am ready to be the party president.
Okay.
Because they say, we cannot continue flogging the dead horse. You can't expect much.
All right, obviously that's a partisan voice.
So we can't, I really want to be sincere. Let's
get a more neutral voice.
We cannot blame Electoral Commission for this.
Let's get a more neutral voice. Mr.
Opio,
partly in the interest of time.
You see, I find myself in a weird position to either disbelieve or believe Dr. Kano Kizza Besigye. I honestly do think that the most reasonable thing to do was not to address a press conference and give out figures. I think that Dr. Kizza Besigye should have gone to the courts, as he did in the past.
Yeah.
You see, the failure or refusal to go to court by Dr. Besigye and resorting to a call on the public to believe his story puts him in a very tricky position, because the law provides that if you contest the results, you've got to go to the courts of law. Only if you have failed to find results in the courts of law should you then resort to other means. Besigye's refusal to go to court, I find it deplorable, and he should have gone to court. But in as far as his results are concerned, I have no idea when he got them, how he got them, but I do think that it is going to be hard to believe him, especially in light of the fact that he has refused to adduce this evidence before a court of law to decide.
Right.
If Besigye wanted to be believed, if he really felt aggrieved, if he had evidence of rigging of the election, which I think is apparent, everybody knows the flaws that characterize this election process.
Those are allegations, Mr. Opio.
Everybody saw the flaws that characterize this election process. Several Ugandans were denied the right to vote because of missing names on the register.
Including